You've seen how to create a simple class and object till now. So, we have taken this example of a library class. So, we've taken a class which has a book name, a book ID, and the status of book, is it issued or not, and whom is it issued to. We used these as members. We also saw how to make them private and the set and get methods to assign values to each of these member variables that are there inside the class. Now, let us say while creating the no, while creating this object, we used this syntax, right? This is the syntax we used where we said this is the class name which is going to be created. This is the object which was the variable name. New was the keyword used, and this was the class name with two brackets. Now, what this function, now this is a function call, right? This generally a function call is what we do with name and two brackets of this format is a function call, right? So, what is this function? We have never seen a function by this name anywhere in the code till now. So, this function is called as a constructor. Now, what we are doing here basically is we are saying create a new object of type library book and call this function to create that object. So what is done by default is when you create a class, the Java adds by itself a default function called as a constructor. So this is the function that gets called for the creation of the object. So as soon as you say new library book, this constructor gets called and it looks at what is required to be initialized. Now here we have these four members to be initialized. We have not assigned values, we just have three member variables, four member variables. So it will look at these four member variables, create these four variables and come back and assign a reference to the book one to where is the object located in the memory. So you basically get a reference to the object that gets created as a reference as a result of this call to the constructor. Now, constructors by themselves are always present in a class even if we don't define it. So in this case, the library book class, which is written here, does not by itself have a function called library book, but we are still calling it because it is defined by default. Now, what is the use of a constructor? Now, one obvious use what we saw is creation of the object itself is done as a result of the call to the constructor. Now, the other uses of constructor is we can use the constructor to assign values to these member variables. Now, what do you mean by assign values? Let's say when I'm creating a new uh, book as an object, while creation of the object itself, I can give values to each of these member variables. Meaning I need not call the set function separately. The assigning values can be done as part of this call itself. So let's see what we mean by that. Now here we have the first book that we are creating which having these four values. So what we can do is in the same call, I will rewrite the call here, but I can say I want to use, let's say I will initialize only the name of the book. Okay, so I want to initialize a book by the name Java, right? So if we have to do this, that means there has to be a function which can receive a string as a variable. So as of now, we don't have such a function listed here. So the default constructors are need not be present in the class, but constructors to which we are going to pass some value have to be defined by us. So there has to be a constructor. So constructors are functions with the same name as the class itself. So I am going to create a constructor which will receive a variable, right? And to whom does this variable go to? I use the variable to initialize my book name. So what did we do now? So we created a constructor called library book, which receives a parameter called as Java, which is a string variable, and this variable gets us passed as a variable here, and that gets assigned to book name. Now we can see how constructor is defined. A constructor has the same name as the class name. Alright, it does not have any return type. So you can compare this function call, this function definition and this function definition. This function definition has a function name, has a variable that it is receiving, and also has a return type. Right? But a constructor does not have a return type. We are not taking any return value because it's a special function which by default always returns a reference to the object that it creates. Fine. Now, as soon as we create our own custom constructor, customized constructor, which we are going to use in our program, the default constructor, which did not receive any parameters, starts throwing an error because now you are saying you want to use a constructor of this type. So that means you want library book to be having a value as a parameter being passed here, right? So I can pass all the other, for example, if I want to create four different books, let's say XYZ, ABC, and PQR, some random book names, and I can remove from all of these object creations the set name function. I need not set this name anymore because the name is being set by my constructor itself, right? So class name, the variable name, which is the object name, new keyword, the constructor name, which is the same as the class name, and to this I'm passing the parameter. So in the class I'm creating another function with the same name as the class. I can receive a parameter to this function. I can use this parameter to initialize any of these variables inside the class. Right? Now, because this is just a function, eventually we can pass multiple values also. Need not be only one value. So I can pass all these four values, book ID, issued to all of them when I create my object. So I can say Java is the book name, book ID, let us say I initially call it 000 for all the books that I'm creating initially. All books are not issued, so false initially. Issued to, let us say I will just say mm, null for now. Null meaning it is not issued to anybody. Right? So that means I'm initializing my object book1 with the name Java, book ID 0, not issued value is false, and whom is it issued to value status null. So that means I need to have a function in my class which can receive these four parameters. So whatever function I have created here receives only one parameter. So I need to change this to receive all the four. So one is book ID, and then I need to receive a boolean value, and then I need to receive a string value again. Right? So, and each of them gets assigned to the corresponding member variable in the class. Okay, so ID get assigned to book ID, issue get assigned to issued, and the string 2 gets assigned to 2. So as soon as the book 1 gets created, it automatically takes all the values that were given to book 1. So I don't need any of these now. All these set can be removed. So the one line can do the job of the four lines that we're doing before, right? So the same thing can be repeated for all of them. So all the other, as of now, just copy paste into this, but the concept you can change it while you're doing in your system. So you can give some other values to initialize the data, right? Fine. So this is how the constructor can be used to initialize the member variables inside a class. So let me repeat the basic requirement for a constructor. The name should be same as the class name. It can receive any number of parameters. It will not have a return type as the member definition, function definition, and even in the function it will not return anything, right? So that's a constructor. And when does it get called? It gets called as a result of the new keywords. When I say new and call this library book, automatically the constructor gets called, right? Now we need not have only one constructor in a class. Fine. So we'll see that. We'll see that example next, where we will have multiple constructors. Now, as of now, we are having a single constructor here. We will see how we can have multiple constructors in a class when we talk about primarily about overloading. So we'll see that in the future videos. Thank you.